And joining us now with more on the Gaza war on day 156 is Ruth Wasserman-Lande, former member of Knesset and Deputy Ambassador of the Israeli Embassy in Cairo and a research fellow at the Misgav Institute for National Security. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So Ramadan is beginning today, and as of this interview, there is no hostage deal as Hamas is refusing to release any hostages. So where does this leave Israel and the IDF? Will Israel have no choice now but to move into Rafah?
So first of all, the Rafah session of the war is key. And Israel cannot allow itself not to go into Rafah at some point because the air that the Hamas is receiving, or rather the opportunity to either hide, manufacture or remanufacture its arms, or smuggle them from the Philadelphia line, from the ground, from Egypt. Some of these things did happen during the time when the IDF was not in the Strip. All of those things can still happen. And whilst they can still happen, that means that the Hamas may have the needed air, the ammunition, and the capability that they need to, again, regain their strength and to take control over Gaza. And this is something that the IDF simply cannot allow, just for the fact that that would mean that the 7th of October can happen again and again, just like the Hamas says clearly that it will. And therefore, going into the Rafah part of Gaza is not a question. This is a must. What the Hamas wants is for the IDF to do that in Ramadan. That's why it's not moving forward with a hostage deal. It's not helping in any way to make this process culminate in any manner, because it wants Israel to be dragged into this kind of escalation, specifically in Ramadan, and that would recruit the support of Muslims worldwide, but more particularly in the West Bank, in the north, in Lebanon, and within Israel itself, which is something that the IDF and Israel should not fall into.
And yet, there is also intense international pressure for Israel not to operate in Rafah. U.S. President Biden even said it was a red line. But yet, as you said, Israel has no choice but to operate in Rafah at some point. So how does it do this and still appease its Western allies?
This is a very difficult situation because I would not speak about appeasing Western allies, but the United States is something different. Israel and the United States have a strategic relationship. There is a kind of a symbiosis that is very important and key in the geostrategic security concept of Israel to begin with, and therefore Israel has to take into account what the American administration is asking on the one hand. On the other hand, as I said, the only, or I would say the foremost responsibility of any democratically elected government, whether it's in Israel or any other place on the face of the planet, is to make sure that their citizens are safe, that they are not massacred, burnt, raped, killed, and so on. And this is something that, if any leader takes 1 minute to think about, this is the first and foremost responsibility of any government to its own citizens. Without taking care of Rafah, the Israeli government cannot give this or make true its own promise, its own responsibility to its own citizens. And therefore, it is in a very difficult place. I believe that there is no other way other than to take care of the enemy, and I'm not talking about the Palestinian population as a whole, but rather the Hamas, which is a very difficult thing to do because they entrench themselves amidst the civilian population on purpose because they don't care about their own people. In schools, they wear civilian clothing. They try to make the IDF hurt as many civilians as possible in order to increase the international pressure on Israel. And yet, the IDF will have to do so in order to make away with this very significant threat.
You know, I also want to ask if there is no deal now ahead of Ramadan, despite all the pressure exerted by the United States, by Qatar, by Egypt, what does this ultimately mean for the hostages?
Almost an impossible situation, very, very difficult, very heartbreaking, and inhumane on the part of the Hamas. The Hamas knows this very well. As opposed to the United States that has no negotiation with terrorist policy, with Russia that also has the same policy, with many other countries, Israel is extremely sensitive to every single life. And it has a responsibility, the government, to bring those people back, hopefully alive. We know that some of the hostages are not alive. And inhumanely, the Hamas is not giving out this very basic information, not to mention other things. So this is a very difficult situation. And I certainly do not envy those who need to make a choice.
All right, well, let's hope Israel will be able to bring the hostages back home soon. Ruth Wasserman-Lande, thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you very much.